This episode of Getting Geeky with Game Relief is being powered by Kolossal Games and their new game coming to Kickstarter on the 31st of July, Terrors of London. Did you know that Kolossal Games will be hosting a launch party? And you might be going to Gen Con if you're going to be there. Why not check out Terrors of London FTG launch party, which is going to be at Family Time Gamers there in Indianapolis, Indiana on Tuesday, the 31st of July. So that's coming up right upon us tomorrow, in fact. So definitely check out that. Family Time Gamers. We'll leave a link in the show notes. Definitely go ahead and check it out. And you can go ahead and back this game starting on the 31st of July on the Kickstarters. Now, on with the show.
Getting Geeky with Gamer Leaf, the podcast in which one man strives to level up his geekhood and helping you do the same, one battle at a time. Now, let's get geeky with Gamer Leaf.
Welcome to Getting Geeky with Game Relief. Tonight we're lucky enough to be joined by Tim Fowers himself from Fowers Games, the creator of a new game that's currently on Kickstarter called Sabotage. Thanks so much for joining us tonight, Tim. We really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me.
No problem. Well, now before we get into your game that's currently on Kickstarter, or any of your games for that matter, as you have quite a library of them, let's rewind a little bit if we could. We don't have to go back too terribly far, of course, unless you were born into tabletop board gaming, but how did you get started into playing tabletop board games and whatnot?
Let's see. Kind of my path was through Twilight Imperium. My brother-in-law introduced me to the second edition of that. And then I think I heard about the third edition coming out. And with the third edition, they're like, oh, it's got these cool new mechanics with like rolls and stuff. And I'm like, where did those come from? And then I did some more homework and I'm like, oh, those come from Puerto Rico. It's Puerto Rico. It's like, oh, it's just like this role selection game. And I'd seen like Settlers of Catan or kind of around, like people playing it, but I didn't really think much of it. And so that was about the time that, I got really interested in, in kind of this whole world. And, really, I think a game like Puerto Rico was probably the one that like really showed me how interesting and elegant board games could be. And about that time, I kind of started on a journey learning to design games, and I actually did video games for several years. But I've always kind of done both, video games and board games, both playing and designing, and kind of took a crazy path, the last 12 years and, got pretty good at making games. So, people like what I make.
Awesome. Yeah. So that's really cool. So you kind of went a different way. I hear people about going gateways. What do you call it? Let's see here. Twilight Imperium. That's not a gateway game, is it?
No. Twilight Imperium is, it's a 4X, Space Empire, Ameritrash game, and it wasn't terribly big at the time. It's just, my brother-in-law, he really liked kind of Space Empire games, like video games like Master of Orion. And so this kind of Space Empire board game he was into. And it was pretty cheesy, but, I think he got it for me for Christmas, or we played his copy. I don't remember. And then I kind of, at some point I found out about Board Game Geek when I was researching the third edition that was coming out for Twilight Imperium. So yeah, it's a very heavy game, but it was just kind of like, I never thought that like really light games could be as interesting as they can be. I kind of, discounted them. So I kind of paid attention to Twilight Imperium because it had a lot going on, and it felt, kind of my perception of what a complicated, interesting game would be. And what's funny now, I don't play heavier games at all.
Yeah, I would say that because from what I've seen of your games, they're not heavy at all, are they?
No. I mean, I've mostly done pretty family friendly stuff. This most recent game, Sabotage, is probably the heaviest that I've done. Even though I wouldn't really categorize it, as heavy as say a war game or like a heavy Euro game. It's just different. It's not as much as heavy as it is new for people when they learn it.
Oh, okay, that's awesome. So besides Sabotage or any of your games, what would you say your current favorite is? Because if I let you pick one of your games, my audience, they might sabotage me.
Right. Yeah, I really like Netrunner. I didn't play it a ton, but I did really like the design quite a bit. I mean, it's one of those things, I'm kind of two minds. I mean, there's things I think are interesting as a designer, and then there's things I think are interesting as a player, and they don't always overlap. But in the last few years, I really like Captain Sonar. I think it was really clever. And you'll see some of that in Sabotage.
Well, that's pretty cool. That's awesome. So when you sit down to play a game, who comes out, the designer or the gamer or both, or how do you manage the two?
Well, I mean, it's one of those things where it's a crossover. I try to take something that I find interesting and then make it really accessible, and kind of peel away, kind of overly complex things so that people can get to the same thing that I enjoy about it faster, and that it can be more accessible to different audiences. So, I mean, I do try to go for a certain level of elegance in that sense. I try to get to the core of something quickly.
Awesome. And you started off designing video games. Was that for a certain console, or where'd that whole story begin, if you don't mind us asking?
Mostly we were doing PC download. We were doing casual games, they're called. So we did a time management game called Now Boarding. We did a word game called Clockwords. Later on, I worked at Amazon as a game designer, and we made a game called Sub-Zero, and a couple other smaller games.
Speaking of Now Boarding, that recently was turned into a board game, am I not mistaken?
Yeah. So I took the old video game I had made and I turned it into a board game.
Awesome. So how was that transition? I guess it maybe being your game, it was maybe easier, but how was it transitioning a app or a game into a board game?
Well, it kind of went back and forth. Like the inspiration for the Now Boarding video game was pick up and deliver board games. So it was like, oh, well, pick up and deliver seems like an interesting mechanic, logistically. And so that inspired the video game. And then the video game, I struggled for a while with the Now Boarding design, turning it into a board game, to try to create kind of dynamic problems for, how do you generate passengers that want to go to certain cities in a meaningful way without having, and then what are some interesting ways that you can problem solve around the logistics of delivering people. And, I wanted to keep you can't capture all of a video game in a board game. And so I had to choose, and most of it was about, that just pressure of people getting angry and wanting to, get to where they're going, and you having to triage them and be like, okay, I'm going to just try to keep you happy, and we're going to deliver this person. And just kind of constantly dealing with the unending pressure of new customers constantly showing up and wanting things, and you forcing you to be more and more clever with your plans and without overwhelming you. And a lot of co-op design and video game design and solo game design is around creating a system that creates puzzles and threats and problems in a way that engage a player without overwhelming them. And that's really tricky when you don't have a computer to kind of balance that. Because a video game can can tell if you're overwhelmed, but a board game can't always tell if you're overwhelmed, because that's when you're pushing too hard. And then if things are too easy, then, again, a video game can throw more things at you, whereas a board game, really can't. But again, there's some ways around it, and you have to be clever.
Well, that's pretty cool. So, yeah, speaking of design, do you do a top up or a top down, or what's your design process look like?
It's pretty exploratory. I don't always know what I'm setting out to do with the design. Sometimes I design from like, I want to create this emotion, or I want to recreate what this movie feels like, because I've done like heist movies and chase movies, and so each one I think has different goals on the outset. So I can't say there's always the single one. Each game kind of has its own origin story that I think is interesting, but mostly I feel like I'm just kind of discovering them. Certain interactions and whatnot. It's not like I'm just taking a blank canvas and writing something. I feel like these are interesting little interactions that you can little mathematical interactions, or I can find something that's kind of unexplored as a theme. Like Burgle Bros, I was explicitly, on a mission to design something that felt like a heist movie and all the cleverness. And then I found mechanics in Forbidden Desert and some other tile-laying games, and was able to riff on those and move into a kind of a new space.
Awesome. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, we have, I want to say, on our shelves of shame, or shelves of opportunity, as I've once heard it described, we have Burgle Bros as well as hardback. We'll have to get them to the table sometime. Who knows when that'll be. We got so many games we haven't got to the table, unfortunately. So before we get into the meat of why people are probably listening, or what they know is going on the Kickstarter, let's pause for a moment to go do our Kickstarter Corner really quick, talk about some other games, and we'll be right back.
What is this place? What is it doing here in the Leaves computer? Oh, it's Kickstarter Corner with the Leaves.
What is this thing? What is it doing here? Oh, wait, you're here. Oh, yeah, you're probably here for Kickstarter Corner. Well, let's do that thing then. So, first game we have to bring you for Kickstarter Corner is Jetpack Joyride. It's from Lucky Duck Games. Jetpack Joyride is a real-time but not timed competitive puzzle game of epic proportion that funded in about 45 minutes. Wow. And they're going strong. They were at $8,000 goal, and at the time of this recording they were at almost $121,000. Wow. They've already unlocked 24 stretch goals, and this game, it looks amazing. So if you want to get the Kickstarter exclusive, you'll go ahead and jump on this. They're ending tomorrow, or, well, depending on when you're listening to this, they end on Tuesday, the 31st of July at 2 p.m. 3 p.m. almost, 2 p.m. and 58 minutes Mountain Standard Time. So definitely check out Jetpack Joyride. It's a great game. I saw Michael Wright, the Unfiltered Gamer, play it. And we also sat down with Vince and had a great discussion last week. So if you want to go back and listen to that, you can always be my guest. Next is Dice and Dragons. It's a fantasy role-playing dice game. It's a co-op role-playing dice game for 1 to 5 heroes who dare to face the most terrifying dragons in Acadia. We had Elad from Golden Egg Games on a while back ago, and you better hurry and get on this one as well, as it ends on Wednesday, the 1st of August. It was a quick campaign, and right now, at the time of recording, which was on Saturday night, they're about $600, well, a little bit less than $600, about $693 away from their goal. So if you want to get Dice and Dragons, make sure you go ahead and check that out. I want to say I saw an Unfiltered Gamer drop a review or a preview of this great game on his YouTube channel recently. Yes, I know I did. So definitely check that out as well. And then next is Asanakids. Learn yoga and mindfulness while playing. Do yoga poses, align the crackers, help the princess to get rid of their bad emotions before they block them. This one's drawn to an eye as well, ending on Wednesday the 1st of August at 1:51 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. So they're about $5,000 away from their goal. So if they don't make it, I hope they relaunch. But either way, you should check out Asanakids. And then next is Kingdoms of Erden, the King of the Mountain Dwarven expansion. They're over 300% of their goal, 350% of their goal, and they have 5 more days to go, ending Friday the 3rd of August. This one, in this game, you collect faction members and dominate the mountain in this fantasy set collection strategy card game for ages 10 and older, 2 to 5 players, 15 to 45 minutes. We had Tim on the show a while back ago, and I know the Leafs, before his next expansion launches, will be bringing you a preview of the game as well. So definitely look out for that in the near future. Next, do you like to play role-playing games, but you've found the monsters that you play with drawing a little stale or becoming stale to you? Well, you'll definitely want to check out the Complete McKeag Creature Compendium Volume 1 from Caitlin McKeag, who is a YouTuber. So definitely check out that. Do you need new original creatures for your tabletop role-playing games? Check out the Complete McKeag Creature Compendium Volume 1. We had her on the show a while back ago, and it looks like this project has funded. They're overfunded. Well, as my children will tell me, they've reached their goal. They haven't funded yet. They won't fund until Saturday the 4th of August. So you definitely want to get in on this one that's ending this Saturday, as they are $38 over their goal. So let's go ahead and make this one a reality, and you can get it for your role-playing games as well. You can go back and listen, as we had Caitlin on the show a while back ago. I'll have to go ahead and go in there and congratulate her, as I see that it has reached its goal. Another game that's reached its goal at the time of recording, they had over 700 backers and still 11 days to go, is Clustered, the 2nd edition. It's a strategic card game, which the Leafs went ahead and we reviewed Edition 1, but this is for the 2nd edition, in which you battle your opponents by placing cards with matching attributes next to each other. Can you out-strategize everyone to win? I think it is a mix of Tetris and Dr. Mario in a sense, but you got shapes and colors and different things like that. It's only $15, so I would definitely check this out. They're ending on Thursday, the 9th of August. Go ahead and get in on that. It's only $15, so definitely check out Clustered, 2nd edition, a strategic card game. Next is Incoming Transmission, cooperative sci-fi pixel board game. Incoming Transmission is a 16-bit inspired cooperative puzzle game for 2 to 5 players or more players in a 10 to 30 minutes, and it's by the designer of Fire of Eidolon. I would definitely check out this one. It looked really fun, and even just check it out for the box. Yes, sirree, Bob, the box, as what it looks like is, it looks like there are, what do you call it? It looks like a Super Nintendo box, so yeah, definitely check out that one. So that's pretty cool. Next, what do we have? We've got Arsenal Transforming Deck Box plus Cloth Mat. It's a deck box with room for at least 130 double sleeve magic cards, dice, and even a cloth mat. I would go watch the video or in the GIF that shows you how the mat folds up. It looks like a pretty fun project. They're quite a bit away from their goal. I hope they relaunch it. They don't make it. We had the creator on the show a while back ago, and this project runs through the 18th of August, so definitely check out Arsenal Transforming Deck Box plus Cloth Mat. Next is Villains and Henchmen. It's a board game for 1 to 4 players where you get to be the bad guys. And we're going to have the creators in the show this week, Wednesday or Thursday coming up this week. So definitely listen as I sit down with Ben and talk all about Villains and Henchmen. It sounds like an awesome game. And you've got a little bit less than 3 weeks to back this great game as it goes through the 19th of August. So definitely check out Villains and Henchmen. Next We talked about role-playing a little bit. Next is another role-playing game for you, Dungeon Delve #2, Dungeons of the Dread Worm. It's a fantasy role-playing module for 1st and 2nd edition D&D, BECMI D&D, OSRIC, DCC, Pathfinder, Labyrinth Lord, Swords and Wizardry, or other OSR games. They're over 400% funded. Definitely check out this one. And that also has a little bit less than 3 weeks to go, ending on Sunday the 19th of August. Last but not least, on the Kickstarter Corner for today, at least, is Totally Medieval, the Epic Adventure. We had Zach on the show, so you can go back and listen to that. But it's in this game in Totally Medieval, alliance or war, compete or cooperate in the mythic world of Totally Medieval. But be wary and trust no one, because even the game might get you. There's still 26 days to go on this one at the time of recording, ending on Friday the 24th of August. I definitely encourage you to go check out Totally Medieval. It's awesome, and it looks really cool and really fun. Plus, I'd encourage you to also go back, and maybe I'm being a little bit biased, but even if you don't listen to every time when I talk, go ahead and zone me out. But I would go back and listen to our interview we had with Zach as he tells you how he went from not funding his Kickstarter of the 2nd edition of Historical Conquest to making his game company be able to support him full-time, as well as bring on some employees and some other great things that he'll be doing in 2019. Definitely go back and listen to my interview with Zach Edwards, who is running Totally Medieval, the Epic Adventure, on the Kickstarters currently. Now, back to the show. But yeah, now, Tim, the word on the street is you have a new game on Kickstarter. What can you tell us about Sabotage?
Sabotage is spies versus supervillains, so kind of a Incredibles or a kind of a James Bond. You know, we've got these Bond villains that are going to destroy the world, and you're having to infiltrate their base and disable the Doomsday device without getting caught. And if they catch you, they win, and if you can disable the device, they win. And the whole game is played behind a screen, so both sides don't necessarily know where each other are. So they're both kind of in a fog of war, and they have certain ways in which they can communicate over the board. So like the villains are trying to protect their Doomsday device, and they have flashlights that they can shine in certain directions on the map, and then the spies have to say if they're there. And they also have just generally crazy, weapons and freeze rays and whatnot. They're getting more powerful as the game goes on. They're unlocking bigger abilities. And the spies, on the other hand, are just trying to deceive them. They're trying to make it appear like they're going in a certain direction, and bluffing and constantly staying ahead of the guards to not get shot and hack the Doomsday. But every time the villains move, or the spies move, they make noise, and that noise gives away clues to where they are to the other side of the board. And so one side is hunting and the other side is evading.
Well, that's pretty cool. And you talked of a shield. I want to say you didn't have to put the shield in the box. The box actually transforms into the shield from the look of your Kickstarter page?
Yeah. So we're going to make it so the box unfolds to become the shield. It's just kind of a space-saving, device. And we're going to be able to put some cool art on it.
Well, that's pretty cool. That's awesome. And let's see, is there real flashlights? Are there real flashlights, or how does that work?
Oh, it's just, everything's played out on a little chessboard. It's a 4x4 grid of rooms. And when you're on the board and you shine a flashlight in a certain direction, you name the rooms that you're revealing to the other side, and they have to say if they're there or not. And both sides are getting gadgets and counter gadgets and whatnot, and getting more powerful and getting trickier on the spy side. And so it kind of escalates. And there's kind of a counter. The spies can only be hit 5 times. Every time they get hit, they have to leave the map and come back on. But if they can hack the Doomsday device 8 times, they win. And so, that's kind of the back and forth is both side has a victory condition they're fighting towards, and the other one is trying to foil their plans. So it's pretty dramatic.
That's pretty cool. I'm trying to think. We have a hidden movement game. I can't think of what the name of it is right now. Oh, Spectre Ops. My wife just told me it's Spectre Ops. It sounds kind of similar to that. How would it compare, do you think?
Yeah, there's definitely some overlap with Spectre Ops. It's just a much smaller map, and the sides are even. There's actually 2 infiltrating spies and 2 guards instead of 3 or 4 versus 1.
And so would I have to play? Would it have to be 2 against 2, or is there a way to do 1 against 1, or what? How many people can play the game?
Yeah, you can play 1v1, and then we actually have an app that we've developed to play as the villain. So if you want to play with your spouse or whatever against the villains, you can actually just set up the board, everything that would be on your side of the shield, and then you just treat the app as the villains, and you can play through the whole game. And they'll hunt you down, and they're pretty challenging. And
so during playtesting, because I imagine quite a bit of playtesting probably went into it, was there anything you had to cut because it just wouldn't work for this game, Tim?
We've been back and forth on several different features. It's one of those things where you kind of you brainstorm and you try a lot of things, and then you cut the things that basically are pulling their weight. If something is overly complex, then you have to cut it. If it's or if it's too hard to explain. I mean, we had a whole system where the guards had a different victory condition, where they could go to these relay points and get an alternate victory condition instead of just hunting the spies. But we found that was just a little too much overhead, and it really took away from just the true cat and mouse game of just hunting each other.
Cool, awesome. And when I think of the shield or whatnot, it kind of reminds me of back in the day when I used to play Battleship, like when we had the shield in between us or whatnot.
Yeah, very much inspired by that.
Well, that's pretty cool. So I know on Spectre Ops, so you kind of have the villain is writing down their stuff. So what are they doing in this? Is it kind of like Battleship? Like if they say you're in such and such area and then you have to tell them, or how does that look?
Yeah.
Yeah. If we were to sit down and play, how do you play this game?
Well, a big part of the game is when all of the players plan their moves at the same time, and they program them in similar to Robo Rally. So they're saying, okay, I'm going to move up, and then I'm going to move right, and then, so on. And they're trying to coordinate with their teammate on what they're going to do, because there's a lot of teamwork opportunities in the game, for both sides. And so you both have to program your moves, in a way that the other side doesn't hear what you're planning, because they're making a plan at the same time. And then once everyone has locked in what they're going to do this turn, the villains go first. They always go first. And then the spies go. So if on your turn, since the spies go second, if you reveal too much about where you are, then the spies or the villains are going to be able to go first and come and get you and shoot you with their taser before you can even get a chance to move. So you have to be 2 steps ahead of them.
Oh, wow. So, and when it comes to Sabotage, what would you say the thing you're most proud of is, Tim?
I mean, there's an old video game called Splinter Cell. And within that video game, there was a mode that was exactly this. It was 2 guards versus 2 spies. And I've always loved how that game played. It was always this very tense, interesting mind games type thing. And I think I'm able to capture some of that game in a tabletop. So for me, I'm ecstatic to share it with people. I'm really excited, and I think that it's definitely a hard first play. So we require people to play an intro game to learn the rules. But once you get kind of understand how the system works, it's not terribly complex. It's not that heavy of a game. It just, the first game I think is a heavy game. So I think it's pretty accessible.
Well, that's awesome. Now, per se, somebody's falling asleep, Tim, it wouldn't be because of you or this great game. It'd be because of me and my podcast. We're going into that. July's almost ended, and since the first of the year, we've already released 123 episodes. So sometimes they get a little tired of hearing me drone on and on. So sometimes they fall asleep, but now they're suddenly jolted awake, so they don't hit the oncoming traffic. Why should they take a chance on Sabotage, especially with all the other great games that are out there on the Kickstarters currently, Tim?
I mean, that's the thing is this game, I actually say on the Kickstarter, it's not for everybody, but it's not like anything else. So that's why I leave it to the backers to read about it. There is a print and play that they can try. There's lots of reviews and information. There's playthroughs, and figure out for themselves if they think this is the type of thing they like. But, it's an asymmetric, team-based, stealth, miniatures game. There's plenty of games out there that are similar. There's a lot of, like minis games. There's a lot of minis games that play the same way. This is not like any of those. But at the same time, it might not be up your alley. So, don't feel like, I have people that really like my games, and I definitely want them to read about each new game that I make and see if it's for them. And, if it's not for you, I'm totally fine with it. Like, I don't want to be pushy.
Awesome. So if it is for somebody, what is that going to put them back, Tim? How much does it cost?
It's a $60 pledge, or $59 or something like that. So, and this is probably the most deluxe game I've made. It's going to have miniatures, a lot of wood components, a magnetic board, or magnetic box that unfolds into the board. It's all, it's pretty premium.
I know you don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. So if somebody takes a chance on Sabotage and backs it, when would they anticipate getting it so they can play it?
We'll have it in April. We're giving ourselves some time to get all the models made, and just the whole process. Because in the past, I've done like 6 months to make a game, and since this is kind of premium, I wanted to give myself a little bit more time to set expectations.
Awesome. And then imagine you're pretty biased, it being your game and all. So per se, they want to see what somebody else maybe thought of it that wouldn't be so biased. Is there anybody out there that they might be able to see what other people thought of it? Any reviews of Sabotage out there? Yeah,
we have several reviews on the thing. We have Geek Dad. We have Rado runs through. We played it on a Penny Arcade live stream. And there's also some other playthrough videos. And there's lots of quotes and testimonials from people who have tried it. And you can try it for yourself. We have the whole intro scenario up for print and play.
Oh, wow. And is that free or on the print and play?
Yeah, it's free.
Oh, well, that's pretty cool. So awesome. So go ahead and we'll make sure we leave the links in the show notes. So if you want to go ahead and check it out, you can do that and see what other people thought of it. And like Tim said, you can go ahead and try it with the free print and play. That's awesome. Now, so check that out. Go ahead and click on the links so you don't have to type it in or whatnot. Now, I know you don't listen to podcasts from what it sounds like, Tim, but the next portion of our podcast is called Adventures in Application Acquisition, where we talk about an app, be it for your cell phone, your tablet, your computer, or even a video game. And it doesn't even necessarily have to deal with tabletop board games or sabotaging your neighbor or anything like that. Is there an app you use a lot of that we can talk about for a moment, Tim?
Well, I make apps too.
Oh boy, that's cool. Awesome. So what, I know Burgle Bros, that's an app. I think we have that too. I haven't played that yet either. I'm telling you all the games we have of yours that we haven't played. What's an app we can talk about for a moment?
Well, I mean, I just released a new app called Hardback, which is a deck building word game. But other apps, I mean, I play a lot of Race for the Galaxy on mobile. And there's a new one a friend of mine developed called Holedown, HOLEDOWN.
What can you tell us about Holedown?
It's a fun little arcade game where it's kind of like Arkanoid or Breakout. But you're kind of working your way down these tunnels, and you get to ricochet these balls between all these structures, and you have to hit them enough times before they get to the top. So it's a fun puzzle game and just has great animations, and it's just kind of for everybody. It's really light and fun, and I think it's like, $3 or $4.
Okay, $3 or $4. Is that like on iOS or Steam or Android, or how do they go about playing it?
iOS and Android.
Oh, okay, awesome. We'll make sure we can leave a link in the show notes and whatnot. I know he's your friend and everything, but probably he doesn't listen to podcasts either. So if you own the rights to Holedown, what would be one thing you would do to fix it or make it better, Tim?
Oh, I'm just getting into it. I don't know what I would change yet. It's definitely a cool mechanic, and I think he's done some fun twists on it. But I don't have any recipes for it yet.
Well, there you go. So we try to make a green podcast around here. So at least at the end of July in 2018, you heard it here first on Getting Geeky with Game Relief that Tim hasn't played it enough to see about fixing it. So it looks like you have a great app, and I know Game Relief's going to check it out at least. So minus coming there to Utah to stalk you in your hometown, Tim, how would people go about keeping up with you or the different games you have coming out and whatnot?
We keep everything on Fowers.games. It's that's the extension of www.fowers.games. And then also I'm at T Fowers on Twitter.
Awesome. And if I recall correctly, your games just go to Kickstarter and then you sell them directly from Fowers.game. Am I correct?
Yes. Most of my games are not available through other websites. There are some stores that hold them. But pretty much online sales, you get them through my site.
Awesome. Is there, if you don't mind us asking, is there a science behind why you did that, or?
No, it's just I think I just like to have direct interaction with my customers, and I just like to make my little games and have people discover them. So I found that selling directly to customers is better for them and better for me, and makes the whole business more sustainable.
Awesome. Yeah, for sure. And like I said, we'll make sure we leave links in the show notes. We don't want to keep you all night, but we really appreciate you coming on Getting Geeky with Game Relief with us tonight, Tim.
All right. Well, thank you much.
No problem.
Gamer Leaf levels up. Tune in next week to see if Gamer Leaf's luck holds up.